Hi everyone. Can you all hear me? Could you please just say yes in the chat so that I know that everyone can hear me? Um, Unfortunately, I don't have my camera on today. So those of you who haven't met me in person, well, you can see my picture there. I just had a baby last week and yeah, I'm here with the baby and I might be nursing in between. So that's the reason why I don't have my camera on for today. But thank you all for joining. I will be letting more of the ladies joining us today as the Q&A is going on. So yeah, today we're here to talk with Dr. Linda Allen all about gut health and allergies. And I'm super, super excited to have her here. If you have not watched her masterclass, I would definitely recommend you do. It's still available, but today we wanted to have a quick chat with her, get to know a bit more about her, the work that she does, and why gut health is so important. Before we get into that, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about Shetribe and myself if this is the first time you're here and you're joining us. So my name is Rosemary, and I'm the founder of Shetribe, a sisterhood community for women of color, just helping us feel healthier, happier, and more successful together. And as part of our services, we have monthly masterclasses from different experts with also a live Q&A. And we have the honor to have Linda here with us today. So I will, yeah, give you the floor for you to just introduce yourself briefly and tell us a bit more about yourself.
Right. Hello. Thank you so much, Rosemary. Hello, ladies. I'm very honored to be able to come on live with you from cold and snowy New York. We just had some snow yesterday. It was probably the only the second time all winter. So I guess that's a good thing for where I am. But I hope you are having a fantastic day and or evening wherever you're tuning in from to watch this Q&A. A little bit about myself. So I am originally from New York. I am a doctor of physical therapy. And although I absolutely love what I do, it does not complete define me as a person. People who know me know I love to dance. I love karaoke and I love to travel. Those are my top things in addition to spending time with my family. My primary patient population that I treat is pediatrics, and I've been doing it for about 16 years now. And it has been a very interesting ride in the healthcare journey that originally for me started off because I was an athlete. I was a prominent soccer player at college level. And even though I had a series of injuries, I ended up really getting into physical therapy during the rehabilitation process that I went in. And that's how I got interested in the profession and geared myself from teaching to physical therapy. During my beginning years of my career, I went from a top healthy athlete to a very, very sick mid 20-year-old. And I was never the person to be on antibiotics or um, probably the last few years of college, I started taking a lot of allergy medication. And I also at that time became lactose intolerant. And then as my career started, I started experiencing massive allergies and chronic sinus infections for the next 12 years straight. And when I say bad, they were awful. I would be pretty close to bedridden each time. About every 3 to 4 months, I was on heavy dose antibiotics to the point where I became allergic to penicillin. I would take a series of over-the-counter medications to try to alleviate the allergies. Back then, I was still on birth control pills for severe cramps that I had. And although I thought my diet was good and I thought I ate healthy and I exercised when I felt well, my quality of life was really drastically impacted. And although I was teaching my patients and my patients' families about health, about prevention, never once did I think about how it's applicable in the way it was for myself, because as far as I knew, using the medication was enough, and using the medication was going to help it. But really, what it did was just put a band aid on the underlying issues. And the reason why I'm so passionate about gut health at this point in time, teaching it to people, especially women of color, is because what I noticed is that over the years of me taking all those medications, not only did my hormones change, but my energy levels went down the tube. My skin started to change. So what ended up happening was I ended up getting a leaky gut syndrome. And with that, I ended up getting a diagnosis of rosacea, which I never knew anybody who was of color that had rosacea or psoriasis. I knew people who had eczema. And I was told by every practitioner that there was nothing I could do. I work with children. You're going to be sick. You work in a school. Schools are dirty. And that was the paradigm or the limiting belief that I was told. And that's the mindset of the healthcare system is just take this and you'll be better. And, it's okay. But a lot changed. And I just got so tired of being sick all the time. And, my quality of life being different, spending time with my family and friends became an issue because I didn't want to pass on illness to them because I would always get sick. And then the spring or the fall would come and then I'd be a mess, sneezing and itchy eyes and everything. So one day I decided to explore acupuncture. And that was the very first time anyone ever started to explore with me certain dietary things that I was doing that could be a concern, how stress could be a concern. And I started to investigate more about the root causes of rosacea because I really did not want to take a sulfur based face wash and cream and use that every day for the rest of my life. And with that, opened up a whole Pandora's box. And ever since then, I just can't shut up about it. I talk to my families regarding their children and how gut health impacts their neurological development, but as well as their skin, especially for all of our infants with eczema. I also now talk about it a lot with women of color, and it's very, very much so a passion of mine to help women of color understand how prevention can really be the best healthcare measure you ever do. So today we're going to really hone in on gut health and allergies. I'm excited to answer any of your questions from the masterclass if you've had a chance to watch it. And if you haven't, definitely go back, listen to some of the questions that are asked today. I have some more information to kind of dive a little bit deeper if you want to go into a few more things, especially as it relates to food or toxic products. And we'll just kind of go from there. Again, with the premise of you being an empowered and informed woman, being able to make conscious decisions for yourself and your loved ones as best as possible, understanding that gut health is really underlying for most disease that is seen not only in the Western culture, but in Europe and other countries as well. So I'm super excited to see you all. And that's just a little bit about my story that I hope, inspires some of you to really take a look at what's going on in your life. And, or even somebody that that's like, hey, I need you to get in Shetribe and go check out this masterclass and check out the Q&A.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that story because I know that for many of us, whether it's gut health or something else, we go through health issues and sometimes we think, oh, this is not for Black women, or as you said, rosacea, you never knew any Black woman who had that issue. And so a lot of the things we just don't know and we don't know who to ask for information. So it's great that you've been able to go through some of these challenges yourself and now are helping, women like us prevent it. And also, if we already have it, ways to deal with it naturally. And that's what I really loved about this masterclass is that it gives us, it's not too late. You find out that there are things you can do to make it better or to even cure it altogether. So I really, really love that. Thank you for sharing that story.
Oh my God, that's so true. Because for me, right, imagine after 12 years, you believe that this is just the way it is. You really start to believe the environment that you're in and the people you're around. But I'm happy to say April 2021 will make 4 straight years that I have not been on a single medication, not a single antibiotic, not a single over the counter, not a single allergy medication. But this was a strong conscious decision that I made to make some shifts, not only in how I think, but certain things that I ate, how I manage stress, and also how I perceive certain products, and just really understand how important it was to embrace healing from within. So, like Rose said, it is never too late. Never, never, never. If you are finding yourself struggling and you just don't know where to start, literally start with one step. Every step forward is a movement in the direction towards the end goal. And if you have setbacks, understand that that's just a road bump in the journey, but keep your eye on the bigger vision and don't let anyone steer you from that, because it is 100% possible. So,
Lovely. Thank you.
yes. So, with that, what I'm going to do is just do a quick summary for you guys again on what we talked about in the masterclass. And then as you have questions, you can feel free to unmute yourself or write it in the chat bar, and we'll go through those things specifically. So that way we are able to honor, the questions that you may have live here today with, those who are able to actually join in live. How does that sound for you guys? That sound good? You could put a thumbs up if you want. I just recently learned about the reactions on Zoom. I was like, oh, it's so neat. And the fact that they come in different shades. Like, I'm not even sure, is it matching what's on your phone? I have no idea. Like, I'm not the tech person. So you guys can laugh at me all you need to. It's all good. But in our gut health with allergies class, so we touched upon really making sure we understand what the gut is, right? So the gut is comprised of multiple organs and body systems. That includes your gastrointestinal system, right? So you're talking not just the stomach, but like the liver, the pancreas, the intestines, the colon even. It also is highly impacted by specific things. And so we talked about how your gut, or the microbiome, the bacteria in your gut, is so important. It's known as like the second brain, because the actual cells during the embryonic stage, meaning the fetal stage, they start off and then they split. Half of them go to the brain and the rest stay in the GI system, but they are actually connected by a nervous system called the enteric nervous system, right? And so this is why when you get that nervous feeling and those butterflies in your stomach, or you feel really nauseous, like you feel it as well in your head, right? And so you're not going crazy. It's a real thing. But I think just recently, the medical world is embracing more the impact of how inflammation in the GI system from a variety of factors can impact things like your hormones, can impact your respiratory system, things like allergies and postnasal drip. It can also affect things like memory, mood, and affect like depression and anxiety. So now there is a lot more talk about it more openly, but there's still a lot of work to do. And then we talked about some of the main components of things that you need to be aware of when it comes to trying to naturally address allergies and postnasal drip and sinus concerns and all of that, being in a few main categories: nutrition being one, supplementation being two, and then also being aware of like how you manage stress and movement being another way to address it. Within supplementation, we also talked about the role of prebiotics and probiotics, specific vitamins and minerals that are beneficial to help the gut, and why it is a total package. that you need to address from a variety of lifestyle areas. Remember, when we think about something such as, like, for instance, here in the US, we have like Claritin or Nasonex, which is like an antihistamine over the counter drug that addresses the inflammation that's happening right when you have the allergen attack. But what is happening that is creating that? And so a lot of people, and you can feel free to write in the chat bar, have noticed seasonal allergies. So do you guys ever experience things like allergies in the spring or allergies in the fall, where you're getting that itchy nose and the runny nose and the sneezing and the throat, I guess the little tickle in your throat, you describe it as, or even the itchy eyes? All of those things are reactions that you may see as a result of something that is going on inflammatory wise in the GI system that's releasing extra histamine in the body. And so when we think about healing, we want to, think about a couple of things. If we dive a little more into the food component, right? There are areas of, I wrote some notes here for myself so I wouldn't forget. There's about 5 or 6 main areas of food sources that I tell people to start paying attention to as it relates to how they feel and the symptoms they're noticing, and work with somebody like a nutritionist or an integrative, holistic practitioner, or even an acupuncturist to help you identify which things become triggers. So one of the things that is often fueled with inflammatory processes in the gut can be corn. So, people will say, well, in my country, corn is native. It's used in everything. We grind it, we boil it, we bake it, we use it in a lot of stuff. And that is the same case here in the States as well. One thing we need to be mindful of with something like corn. Corn now is a produce that is so easily mass produced. And if it is on a farm in which the soil has been contaminated, or the soil is sprayed with something, say, for instance, like glyphosate. Now in Europe, you have more restrictions on those things, but there may still be chemical components that are sprayed onto the crops. How does that impact, one, the rate at which the corn grows, what is being absorbed into the soil that then gets into the food that you eat, as well as how well is your body able to break down those additional chemicals that are on the food. Corn can be very, very neurotoxic to the GI system and create a significant amount of inflammation that could drastically affect allergens, and create a lot of mood instability. So you may want to be mindful of that. Another one is soy. Again, this one is heavily debated back and forth. But if you're trying to relieve your allergens, you may want to look at things that are soy-based and look to eliminate them for a period of 3, 6, 9 months and see how you feel versus when you had food sources with soy in it. The reason being is because soy can mimic very much so estrogen. And if you have too much estrogen in your body, things like your pancreas and your liver are then working hard to try to produce other hormones to try to excrete the excess estrogen, which can take things off of balance and kind of create this instability of hormonal and neurochemical responses in the body. From a dairy standpoint, I know this one is a tough one for some people. Dairy, whether it be from cows, goats, you really need to pay attention to the sources. Dairy can be quite inflammatory. It also can produce significant amounts of mucus that affects respiratory function. This includes things like cheese and I try to think of milk, cheese. Some people absolutely love yogurt. is another one that is very popular. And so you want to be mindful, right? One thing that I've learned about over the years is that camel's milk, raw, unpasteurized camel's milk, is the closest thing from an immunoglobulin standpoint, meaning the immune factors that can be provided to the person, that is the closest thing to breast milk. Okay. So if you're a mom and you're finding that breastfeeding is a challenge and things like your allergens are really reactive and you're having lots of dairy and you love cheese and you're noticing things with your skin changing, you may want to start to look into other sources. Some people will go straight to the almond milk or oat milk. Some people will even do goat's milk. And camel's milk can be hard to find. There are only, I think, 1 or 2 places in the US that I know of. There might be a few more in Europe, but I'm not totally aware. But I have seen dramatic changes in testimonies from individuals from a respiratory allergen standpoint when they have eliminated dairy, as well as when they have incorporated something like camel's milk into their diet if they really are into milk. So that's another option you may want to look at. The next one kind of goes hand in hand because milk and cheese and bread, right? Gluten. Gluten has really become a concern. The first time I ever met somebody who had a gluten concern was in Italy. It was the first time I ever heard of celiac disease. I had no clue what it was, and that was back in 2003, maybe? I don't even know. So gluten can be quite inflammatory. You want to pay attention to the wheat that you're utilizing. A lot of people will say that they need a gluten-free diet, but really what may be going on is that you have sensitivities to breaking down gluten because of the additional chemicals and the hybridization that's been happening with wheat. So the original forms of wheat, like einkorn, have been changed over time and then hybridized, and you get this new version of wheat that cannot be digested well by human beings. Sugar is another one. We know that it is just from a nutritional standpoint, not great. It's very inflammatory. It can create a lot of mucus. And that's where my downfall was. Out of all of these areas, sugar was my primary one because I love gummy bears and I love gummy snacks. And that was my pitfall. And then industrialized oils, such as like canola oil, vegetable oil, peanut oil, can sometimes be inflammatory. So just so that you guys get a little bit more understanding of when we talk about foods, considering a higher base plant option may be your jam. And so, if you guys have specific questions regarding, nutrition and dietary stuff, again, I'm not a dietitian, but I have seen how it has worked for me to shift things. Feel free to let me know if you have questions regarding that. And then the last part I'm going to make is regarding supplementation. So we need to understand that, probiotics have become this big buzzword and they are very beneficial. However, sourcing of probiotics becomes crucial because not all probiotics are the same. And many times you may be in need of some prebiotics, which are the fibers that the probiotic would eat to then help grow in the gut. Every time you're on a medication, every time, it destroys all of the gut bacteria. So for every time I was on antibiotics, it killed it 6 months to more before it would replicate. But I'm on antibiotics every 3 to 4 months. So it was no wonder that I could not relieve myself of things. So it's super important. I know that from a gut standpoint, I wanted to make sure to read to you guys real quickly. Oh, I should have bookmarked it. There we go. The World Health Organization, right? The World Health Organization really feels that it's important for you to understand that from a microbiome standpoint, most of your gut inflammation and most of the things going on in your gut are contributing to illnesses, autoimmune disease, diabetes, respiratory concerns, cardiovascular concerns, even things like Alzheimer's. So again, this is really, really a big deal, because every time you have GI inflammation, you have a release of compounds that get into your bloodstream. And this is why you tend to have so much inflammation going on. So you want to be mindful that, the probiotics, you can use high quality, try to get something where it's live bacterial cultures in it. Look for something that has 7 to 9 strains of bacteria, as well as make sure that you're switching that every blue moon, right? So you don't want to keep using the same probiotic for 3, 4, 5 years. Use that one for a period of time, switch to another one, and then go back, because diversity is everything. So, right, we want diversity in healthcare, we want diversity seen in the wellness space, you want diversity in your health. So those were the main sticking points. I'm gonna open up the floor to you ladies. If you have specific questions, again, feel free to ask. I've had quite a number of personal experiences, but I've also seen quite a lot of experiences from other people regarding allergens and skin issues that are all related to the gut. So let me know if you have particular ones. And if you don't want to unmute, it's totally cool. You can write it in the chat. I won't bite. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, since I just rolled in here, I'm like, okay.
What's up?
Yeah, nutrition is really big for me. And I know I've been having an issue with like cravings this past month of just eating horribly. And normally that's not my way. So I'm like, what is going on with my body? Plus, I'm trying to get my sexy back, okay? Because like when I eat crappy, my skin actually, yeah, like the glow. I still like I'm cute, but like the glow to the fullest extent that it could be there is not there, you know? So what is the first step like you would recommend? One, because I don't know why I'm attracted to eating crap right now. I'm wondering if that's like a digestion, like when the body craves these foods, is there something going on? And yeah, how can I turn that around?
Sure. So I'm not super well versed in specific foods but this is a great question. What I've learned so far is that oftentimes when you have certain cravings, whether they're salty type of cravings, sugary cravings, some people will have a little combo of them, that somewhere along the line, there became some type of nutritional deficiency. So whether it was a mineral or a vitamin that became deficient, somewhere along the line, it can be craving. So for me, for instance, right, I tend to crave salty things. That's my go-to, right? So one of the things that I know that has been suggested to me many times is more things like celery, because they tend to have a more natural like iodine and salt in them, overall, that when I get those cravings, I should go there versus going towards the potato chip or the veggie chip that I want to eat. Because like you said, when you go for the cravings, you start to feel the difference, you see the difference and everything like that. So one thing I would say is, if you feel like normally your diet is really healthy and you just get these random cravings, look at stress wise what's going on, right? Active movement, how much physical movement are you getting during that period or just before that period where you're starting to notice you getting those cravings again? And then take a look at, maybe even consider doing something like a quick 1 to 2 week food chart. What were the foods you ate on a regular prior to the cravings kicking in? If they were really healthy based foods and you're still finding the cravings come very strong, you may need to consider something like a digestive enzyme to help your body actually take in the nutrition from the food better. So as we age and as we get to the mid 20s, 30s and up, our normal digestive enzymes in the body slow down and they decrease, which means that, we can have individuals who eat amazingly healthy and yet they're still finding hormones are imbalanced or they're sluggish, they're tired. And somewhere along the line, it's not being absorbed, right? So a lot of times when we look at disease, there's either an absorption issue or a deficiency going on. So it could be that you may need help breaking down the food even more with a digestive enzyme to help absorb the nutrients that you're looking for to lessen the frequency of the cravings. Again, cravings are going to happen, but if you're noticing that they come on strong and they really set you back hard, it is something to consider. I know you came in late, but part of my journey was that for about 12 years, I had massive allergies, sinus issues about every 3 to 4 months on massive meds. And then I got rosacea, right? And so now I've been almost 4 years free. In April, it'll be 4 years free. And so and one of the things that I had to realize was that stress played a big role for me. I had a stressful job. I didn't particularly love my job. Or the people I was around. I love what I do, but the people I was around was very negative, very stressful. I was a caregiver for sick parents, and trying to do relationships and all that stuff. Like life kicked in, right? And I went for sugar. Back then, I would go for sugar. Well, every time now, I have if I were to go and have a massive amount of sugar like I used to, immediately skin is going to start having reactions. I'm going to start having more phlegm. Like I notice now right away. So just really take a look and see, where things are. And one thing that I like to do too is, I don't know the particular author of it, but there is a book called like Food Dieting. It's not necessarily a diet, but like suggested foods based on your blood type. Right? So some people have done like those things, like investigated foods that are better for their particular blood types because they've noticed overall they're healthier in that way from a respiratory, energy standpoint, hormonal standpoint. I have it in the other room. I just I see the picture and I'll like envision it. And then like if you have particular areas of concern, for instance, like if you have like hormonal concerns being something that has been an underlying concern, or blood sugar being something as a concern, you can look into things like Anthony Williams has some nice stuff. The medical medium I like. Nikki wrote Ayurveda. Yep, these are all great options that you can look into. And then if it's really a concern, I would work short period with a more of a holistic nutritionist and see on a deeper level where the cravings coming from, because sometimes they can also be subconscious reactions to triggers, mindset triggers that have happened, and that's the go-to for that as well. So I hope that helps somewhat answer or give you some ideas of some questions. That's a really good one. I love it. Yeah, no problem. Any other questions, ladies?
I have a question. I'm pretty sure that it's stress, but so the back of my hands, they're darker in tone and like drier. A similar thing happened I'd probably say about 8 years ago, except at that time, like kind of little whelps. So again, maybe like hive like reaction happened. And then eventually like they dried down until, and then it was gone. But like now, like the whelps didn't even come, the hives didn't come this time, except like just little, like you could probably see like little, it's like little cuts essentially. So I guess I was just wondering if would you say, is that more so like stress related, or, because I pretty much eat plant-based for the most part. So I did cut out dairy Like on a regular, like there have been like 1 or 2 times where I've had it, or a few times where I've had it. So it's not like 100%, but definitely, I'd probably say about 90. I'll give grace and say 90%.
Yeah. No, that's great. Have you ever been formally diagnosed? It sounds like similar to like psoriasis, where sometimes the whelps become, do they ever ooze or anything?
No, they don't. No, they didn't. They just came, and so like I covered it the last when it happened the last time. I kind of covered it with a bandage, and I think eventually maybe put like witch hazel on it so that it would dry out instead of like there was no oozing. But it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened since. Like this is the first time that it kind of happened again, and like this time there's like an actual cut. So I'm not sure if it's psoriasis or if it's also part of like washing my hands a whole lot. That's the other thing. Sorry, it's like because of the just what we're in.
Yes. No,
But
it's a good question. So there's a couple things. If your diet is, for the most part, healthy, plant-based for that, so then the food sourcing may not be an issue, for that. Again, we can't totally, unless we grow our own soil and know it, there may be some traces of things, in the food sourcing, even if organic, but from an overall standpoint, that sounds like it's good. So there's a couple things you're going to want to do, like possibly a baseline blood work panel on your hormones. Mm-hmm. Check your overall hormones. So this becomes a challenge in the US in particular, but I'm not sure how they do it in other countries. So when we go for blood work, they're going to just mark off the generic things, and they don't dive deeper into them. To request may be questionable, or some people will want to look at parathyroid hormone and even estrogen and testosterone levels, as well as progesterone levels. They will only check off a few, but if thyroid has ever been a concern, it's imperative that free T3 and free T4 levels are looked at, in addition to TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone. They have to be looked at, because they can say oh, the TSH level is within normal, but somewhere between the T3 and T4, which are the precursors, something is off. And so even though visually it may look like the blood panel is normal, there may be something more underlying from a hormonal standpoint going on. Another thing that I would say is definitely pay attention to the stress. So one thing that I've noticed over the few years working with a lot of particularly women of color and working through health concerns is that past traumas, past subconscious thoughts that are still being held onto, whether it's anger, belittlement, anguish, depression, feeling unworthy, from whether it's a parent, an uncle, an aunt, a cousin, a concern that happened during schooling, whatever it may be, could still at times be somewhat of a repetitive trigger subconsciously. So there may not have been something right there in your face that you can pinpoint that made that reaction happen from an emotional stress standpoint, but it could be that these underlying thoughts come in these waves, and the subconscious thoughts will have more of a response in terms of health symptoms than anything else. So a lot of times I'll suggest people, if they have concerns about, especially in the skin area, is really, really focus on looking at your current circle and your past circle, or expand that immediate circle of friends and family, and then go another level out and see who in there may be considered a toxic burden for you. It's a really hard one to swallow for certain. Sometimes this even means breaking up with friends that really are not a great fit. But if the stressor is not coming from work, It's either family, friends, relationships, finances, one of the above. And so, you know, you want to think about those things because it could be this repeated trigger. And then lastly, you are going to want to take a look at the products you use. So now this includes a wide variety, especially when it comes to skin. Over a period of time, you may need to consider soaps, hand soaps, face soaps, lotions, washing detergents, get rid of dryer sheets, you know, candles and fragrances, things that would be triggers, even things like some people may not even realize they have a rubber latex allergy, any potential chemicals that may have been used on hair, even when we as women use like weaves and hair extensions, what chemicals were put on that hair before we put them on our scalp, and were we touching that prior? So one thing I'll tell people is start by one area first in that and investigate. Look at all the labels on the products and all the ingredients. If you have things like perfume and fragrance and SLS and PEG 90, again, in Europe, some of those are already banned and some still slip through. In the US, we only have less than 20 that are banned, and a lot of them are labeled fragrance, and that is considered in the US a trade secret. Our government does not have to disclose to us all the synthetic chemicals that are in what they consider fragrance, but it can be a strong trigger for skincare concerns. If you're going to wash, you know, this is a hard one because I experience this a lot too with frequent hand washing. You know, just be really mindful of the soap. Avoid antibacterial, right? And so this one is a little bit of a trigger at times because people are like, I need antibacterial because I need to get rid of the bacteria. Your skin has more bacteria than human skin cells, like than human cells. You need the bacteria. So if there is a total stripping away of bacteria on your skin, maybe that can be causing these random breakouts at times for you on the backs of your hands. Very gentle soaps, and then consider things like, you know, shea butter or cocoa butter or jojoba oil that's organic in nature and well sourced as a very basic moisturizer that goes on while the skin is still damp. And maybe try some of those. But usually for individuals, if they have an underlying concern possibly for eczema, psoriasis, or rosacea, somewhere along the line, some GI issue is going on. And it could be that small 10% of foods are now creating more frequent reactions for you, or it could be that, you know, there needs to be more diversity in the microbiome in your gut and really get on some probiotics and prebiotics to really help that overall, and then go again from there. One thing I do know is for me, the years of medications, birth control and stuff, in order for everything to work really well, I actually did have to give my liver a lot of support with, like you said, like plant-based foods. But I also had to do a little bit of detoxing there because those medications are still within your system even years later. So, you know, there could be something from a long time ago that still is a little bit of a trigger. It's a little bit of a puzzle match in game. So start slow by slow with one thing at a time, and then go from there and see what things alleviate the current symptoms you're seeing, and then how can we help those symptoms stay away permanently.
You said free T3, free T4, and
Yep, TSH, which would be thyroid stimulating hormone. So that all those three would look at thyroid. Then you're going to want to look at parathyroid hormone levels. You'll want to look at estrogen and progesterone levels, and estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Those are usually the main ones. If they had to go deeper, they would, but that type of panel would give them a lot of information. You know, that would be very helpful to know, you know, what is going on, you know, from a hormonal standpoint, because a lot of the products we use, a lot of the foods that we eat can affect our hormones as well as stress. So, you know, it's important to really know what the baseline is for those numbers. And some doctors may pacify you and say, oh, you don't really need that. It's just skin. Just go to the dermatologist. But
Right.
hold strong on that, because unfortunately, the physicians, like at this point in time, they forget that they are supposed to work in conjunction. So like in the States, we'll have a dermatologist, we'll have the general practitioner, we'll have the, you know, ophthalmologist, and we'll have all these specialists, but they don't talk to each other. And they don't ever look at the central core root issues. So we need them to know that, yes, although the symptoms go away, they do come back, even if it's over an extended period of time. I want these more detailed, you know, more detailed insight, because I'm trying to get to the root of the issue. And them offering a cream only pacifies it for so long if it's going to come back 8-10 months from now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Like usually when I'm outside of the States, I have like stress is down, the gut is like skin is great, and it's just like then I come back and all of it comes back. So I completely agree and understand. Like my whole goal is to leave. So sorry. Yeah. But thank you.
Where are you currently? Like East Coast, West Coast?
Currently I'm in Georgia. I'm from Jersey, so I understand with the snow.
Yeah, it's you know, it's rough. What I noticed the most, especially for women of color, is that when women of color come to the States after they've lived in another country for so many years, probably within the first 5 years, they've gained about 20, 30, 40 pounds. And all of a sudden, some of these underlying health concerns start popping up that were never there before. And it is unfortunate because, you know, in those states, as plentiful as we have access to things, regulation is really poor. And I think more women of color are waking up, but unfortunately, we're still the highest demographic statistically for a lot of disease. Eczema, our children are for eczema by far one of the worst. Diabetes, right, which is an underlying, you know, often for type 2 is an underlying GI and hormonal issue. But GI plays a real big factor in that gut health for multiple sclerosis, diabetes, Alzheimer's, colon cancer, right? We're hitting the tops of the charts for these things. And then as women, we're now the primary caregiver. It really becomes an issue. And so it's really important for us to start to talk about this, because, you know, from a US standpoint, obesity, they'll put up a Black woman in 2 seconds, you know, and put that as the poster child of obesity being ravished and diabetes taking over, which is why COVID so heavily affected our population in the US. You know, we need to change the narrative of that. And so this is just one of a series of master classes over, you know, a period this year that you're going to hear about gut health as it relates to specific things. You know, this time being, you know, allergies, and, you know, and for me, it ended up being skin. So we had some really great questions regarding, you know, skincare. So thank you for that, Nikki. I appreciate that question.
No problem. Yeah, like I used to have allergies, like really bad allergies, and that's when I was living in DC. And then like I left DC, came to Georgia, and it's like not as definitely not as bad as what it used to be, if at all.
See,
so
that's awesome. I experienced it the worst in Southern Virginia when I was in college. The worst. Like I would wake up when my eyes would be the beet red and dry as a bone, like so itchy. And then for a period of time, I came back to the city, New York City. I was fine. And then it kicked up again as things changed in the New York City region. My allergies then kicked in again. So it is tough. I always noticed though, back in the day, that when I left the country, whether it was a beach location or just in Europe, I was totally fine. Never once had an issue.
You know, every time it like I was with Rose last year in Ghana, had no issue, and that was a period of time where I did have a little bit of dairy and did like was more vegetarian or pescatarian, and I had no issues. Like I had no issues eating the meat. I had no issues having the dairy, you know, the cheese or whatever. But I knew as soon as I came back to the States, like that wouldn't be the issue. Same thing. Like I went to Germany. I had meat that I've never had before, and I didn't have an issue. And I was just like, so, I mean, yeah, I say that to say, like, being here, it's definitely a challenge to be able to take care of yourself in that sort of, like, you have to, like, be very aware and mindful about, like, what you put in, what you expose your body to.
Yes.
You're good.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that is a challenge across the globe, right, is access, right? Access and equitable access for people of color, right, is how do we get the equal access to these things without feeling like it's expensive and for those people? And this is a challenge. I tell people, I used to think that way too, because that's how I was raised. Again, the limiting beliefs are being passed down through generations, that those things are expensive. Like, why would you do that? It's so much easier. Again, I was a child that grew up on, you know, canned food, frozen food, and fast food. Soda was like in my house, like, you know, more than water. And to now do a full 360, what I noticed was that I could no longer afford to invest in sick care. I was investing in foods that made me sick, practices that made me sick, and medications that kept making me sick. When I was willing to change the narrative and start investing bit by bit, started with $25, $50 to invest in wellness, invest in health, invest in me, everything changed. So that may be for some people to start their small little indoor garden of foods that you know you like to eat. So you don't have to rely on somebody for that particular food item. It may be collaborating collectively with neighbors and getting into a food service that is more plant-based or holistic or something. It may be finding an exercise or accountability buddy for meditation or something, and hold yourself accountable to celebrate the wins of investing in you. Exactly, just like a co-op, you know, in, you know, having this opportunity, whether it's local gardens together that you actually invest in land, you know, and do it, or you invest in, say, wow, well, this food service can deliver, but they require bulk orders. This many people, this many families come together, they agree to all contribute, and then they split up the food, you know, amongst them so that there is a collaborative effort. We're going to have to get creative sometimes. We can no longer just accept that, you know, the food deserts are there and look for them to be changed, because they're not going to be looked to be changed by those who are in the majority or the oppressors, you know, in society. So the standard is going to always be this white European, but we deserve as well. We were the ones who have foods native to our lands. We were the ones who knew how to cook them. We were the ones that had brought them maybe unwillingly had to bring those foods to other locations. We need to embrace that and go back to the roots. Go back to the root cause of your concerns, the root of your, well-being, your cultural practices of foods, and stop going for convenience, because it is killing us as a group of color, and no one out there is caring to stop that like they are in other ethnic groups. So, I hope that that kind of helps for those who think about the price point being a concern. It is a thing, and it is a narrative that we need to stop talking about in terms of believing that nonsense.
Exactly. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think a lot that you mentioned is about a change of mindset, and it's a daily work, something that I'm also very keen on spreading within the community. Everything happens when you decide in your head, and what you think is expensive today might not be tomorrow. It's just a matter of perspective. So I think you have to start somewhere, as you said, and there are different ways to do that. You gave a few examples already. And as you mentioned, this is part of a series of different masterclasses that you will have hosted for us. So we had this one on gut health and allergies. We have two more up in the year as well. So ladies, if you enjoyed this one, if you haven't watched the masterclass, it's still available. And there will be others where Linda will be going in depth into the different topics and how she can help us. Before we close down, we started at 5 past, so we have a few minutes left. If you could just tell us a little bit more about how we can get in touch with you, how we can work with you, because I know I had the pleasure of doing a health screening with you and it was really interesting. I know that you're offering the ladies of the community a chance to do that as well at a discounted price. And I really recommend you ladies to do it, which will, it's very informative. So, could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, definitely. So right now, I've had for a number of years a holistic wellness business that helps people understand how to use mindset, movement, and more natural plant-based options, supplements, essential oils to embrace wellness for whatever health goals that they may have. With that, there is an opportunity for all of you that watch live and watch the replay to have a chance to do, a discovery call with me, or even have the opportunity to do a free remote, not a free remote, a discounted remote wellness scan. So the way that that works is you do the scan via phone or computer. You just need to have Wi-Fi access. And it is going to use medical research of voice analysis and kinetic touch to be able to get a baseline of your current state of health and wellness, and really kind of give you insight into what is going on with different body systems, different stressors, and suggested natural, holistic plant-based products and supplements that may be beneficial if you so look to choose into that. And so that will be offered to all of you at a discounted rate. Normally it's $50 US. It'll be discounted to $35 US. So you can avail of that at any time. And then outside of that, I love to connect. So I love social media. I am super social. And just how you see me now is how you see me in person. So I would love to one day be able to come over to Europe again and get on another plane and just connect with you all in person. But up until then, I do have social media. Facebook, Instagram are my main go-tos. And this year I said I'm committing to finally being more consistent on Pinterest and finally starting up my LinkedIn, because by the end of the first quarter of 2021, I will be finally opening up my lifestyle medicine coaching practice for Black women. It will focus on it'll focus mainly on being able to provide health service coaching for women who have concerns with things like diabetes, eczema, or just in general overall skin health, mental professional wellness type of concerns, but from a more holistic and lifestyle based approach. So I'm super excited by that, and that will all be announced shortly on my social media. So what I'm going to do is in the chat bar, I'm going to put some links here so that you guys can see how to get access to the discovery call or the wellness scan that I've been able to do, and people absolutely love it, and my social media stuff there. So you all can screenshot it, or what I would do is maybe just copy and paste it onto your desktop or your phone, or save the screenshot or something, so that you can go back at any time. Those are the quick short links to everything there. And again, I'm looking forward to getting to know you all personally and, you know, help in any way I can. Again, my goal out there is really to change the narrative of what wellness looks like in the Black community, and to be able to as well really be able to help Black women change the patterns of generational disease that run through our families. And I'm very passionate about that because, again, as a child, my mother was diabetic when I was 10, and we've been going through this for many years. And the last 5 years before my father passed last February, I was a caregiver for him, and he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. And so a person who was very healthy and never sick to end up with a neurological condition that just ravished him that fast, you know, it is very devastating. And to me, to see so many of my family members have cardiac and diabetic and all sorts of other issues, I was like, no, we've got to change it. So that's really my goal out here, is to just find a community of Black women who are really ready to change their personal health, their mindset, embrace movement, and help their future generations learn the same. So yes, oh yes, you can also save, that's right, the little 3 dots on the side of the chat will allow you to save the information in the chat bar that I wrote there. So I look forward to connecting, but thank you all so much for letting me do a live Q&A with you all. I know it's late for some of you, wherever you are. So again, Rosemary, thank you so much for everything, and great questions, ladies. And for sure, look forward to getting to see you all more on a one-on-one basis.
Thank you so much for joining, ladies. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, if you haven't watched the masterclass, go ahead and check it out. And there will be many more coming on your way. So thank you for joining. And thank you, Linda, as well.
All right, anytime, guys. And don't hesitate. Any questions or think of something, reach out, share with your friends. Again, you know, Rosemary has a beautiful community. So I highly encourage you to keep sharing the information with those you know who could benefit from it, you know, and let them make that decision on whether it's time for them to go take action or not. So thank you all. I hope you have a great rest of your week. And we will chat soon. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.